All right, so this is the intro of a short series of videos about deploy. And what I wanted to do was deploy a Java application in Azure with no IaaS. So I wanted to do it with PaaS, and PaaS could either be one of the services, or it could be one of the custom app services, or it could be a container service. So originally the idea was to try and do this in something that looked like Beanstalk, because I always find Beanstalk really interesting because of the way it sets everything up and it shows it to you. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to do this with Docker. So this is going to be the ever popular Tika parser deployed in Docker containers, 3 different ways, none of which are IaaS, in Azure. So we're going to look at the Azure App Service on Linux, the Azure Service Fabric on Linux, and the Azure Container Service on Linux. And so all of these have their own advantages and disadvantages. The reason I kind of like these is I actually could get a public app up from Azure that I could then hit from anywhere with only a couple commands. It had to be like less than 5 commands. Or less than like 3 commands to actually deploy it. So the process, and you can see here there are some differences. So I wanted to add this. So Tika actually comes up on port 9998, and I really wanted this to appear on port 80. So I didn't set up SSL or any of that. And so I wanted port mapping. So it turned out both of the services, the Azure App Service and the Azure Service Fabric, were able to expose this on port 80, and I couldn't figure out how to get the container service to do it with a single command. I probably needed to set up a load balancer. So 2 of them do port mapping. Downside is none of these supported auto scale, but like the Service Fabric on Linux, it was easy for me to bring up a multi-node on startup, and I think this one in the middle probably didn't work because you can't do that because actually I don't know why. And then I was actually able to use Docker Compose on one of these, and that was the Service Fabric. It's supposed to work in the app service, but I couldn't get that to work. So basically that's what we're going to do. We're going to show these 5. Now the scripts for these are actually in this repo, GitHub Freemansoft Docker scripts, tree, blah, blah, blah. So you can see that right here. And can I make this bigger? Yeah. So there's a README in here that shows you how to run this. And then I'll pick one of these. There's actually 5 scripts. There's the setup script that logs you in. There's a create resources script that creates the resource pool. There's a deploy, which actually does the deploy. There's an undeploy, which will actually undeploy so you can run script 2 and script 3 alternating, right? And then there's a delete resource script, and there's a variable template, and you basically copy the variable template to be a variable script, and you set the values, and you're good to go. And this should show up in Azure then. So that's it. Basically, what we're going to do is take the Java Tika parser, and because I can't deploy the jar file, I couldn't figure out a way to make that work in the Service Fabric. I'm doing a Docker container, and that is going to be the out-of-the-box Tika parser Docker container that's provided by them, that's available on Docker Hub.